So hear me out. There are a lot of great men out there. I know some of y'all laughed, and I'm holding back my laughter, but my laughter is only because I'm laughing at you, laughing at me. but I believe my statement. I truly do. It's a genuine statement. There are a lot of great men out there. Now, I know it may not seem like that because a lot of y'all have seen nothing but bad examples, hearing a lot of horror stories that has skewed your judgment and perception. And it feels like it's hard out here in these dating streets. I get it. But trust me, again, there are great men. And I want you to be mindful of the qualities that these great men have, all right? Now, let me just say real quick before I get into these qualities. Nobody's perfect, all right? We're all human. We are all flawed. Every last one of us. Yeah, you too, okay? And so understand that the goal is not perfection, but the goal is someone who's well-rounded, who is balanced, who is in alignment with you, who has a connection with you. I'm going to always push finding that person you have a genuine and deep connection with, because with that foundation, everything else can work out. All right. But I do think there's some overall qualities to be mindful of. And I'll say this, if the guy doesn't already fully possess it, he will have a willingness to develop it for the sake of being with you and having a healthy relationship with you. So one of the first qualities that if a man has, don't let him go. And real quick, I know I put the word never in the title, right? Don't judge me. I know it's being a little exaggerated. I'll never say never. So there's going to be some situations, even if he has these qualities, that you might have to let him go. But chances are, if he has these qualities and there's a genuine connection there, I pray that you two never have to let each other go, okay? Now, let's continue. The first quality is emotional availability. So, as a woman, you know there's a lot of men out there who are just not emotionally available. Now, let me say, a lot of that emotional unavailability is not because a man is not capable, but it's going to be dependent a lot of times on his seriousness with this woman. Meaning, if a man is just trying to have a casual relationship with a woman, because though he desires her for various reasons, he doesn't see a future with her. With that woman, he's not going to be emotionally available, because the goal is not to let this move into an emotional place and a place of depth. It's to keep it on the surface. It's to have fun. It's just to be casual. And so what happens is, because a lot of women meet those kind of men, you start to believe that these men are incapable of being emotionally available. No, it's just that one piece of the puzzle is it has to be two people who are serious about each other and see a potential future with each other. However, there are examples of men who, whether they're serious or not, struggle with emotional vulnerability or emotional availability, because that requires vulnerability. And they have things they haven't healed from that block that willingness to be vulnerable, or they have not learned how to be emotionally available in a healthy way. And so this is an example of where, again, if he has a seriousness and a genuine desire to be with you, but he struggles in that area, by you addressing it in a loving and calm manner, I stress the word calm, okay, with this man, he will be willing to work towards that. And if he's not, for whatever reason, even if he does genuinely care about you, it's just not time for a relationship. You know, some guys may love you, but they're just not ready, emotionally ready or emotionally healthy enough to move forward in a relationship with. But back to the fact that the availability is a quality of a very good man, or more so a healthy man. All right. And let me say this. There's going to be some, I know this might sound confusing, but just follow me here. There's going to be some scenarios where a man can be emotionally available. He could be a good man. Doesn't mean he's the right man for you. And that's why we don't want to use just the word never, because listen, I want you to understand it takes more than just that to say, okay, I need to hold on to this. I need to try to make this work with this man. it has to be the right fit. It has to be the man you're in alignment with, have a connection with. Otherwise, it will at some point fall apart. It's inevitable. So let's get to number 2, or let's get to the second quality that if a man has, he's a good man, is he holds himself accountable, or he embraces accountability. Now, the willingness to hold yourself accountable, I think, is an issue a lot of people are struggling with right now. And I think, we have this issue with accepting when we're wrong or accepting when we fell short. And I think it's because there's this fear of just saying, okay, I need to be better. It's almost like we internalize it to now feel like we're less worthy of something or we're not good enough. And it doesn't mean that. It just means you're a human being. You're going to make mistakes. There's going to be things you need to do better. Everyone needs to embrace the ability to see, where can I improve? And men who have developed to a certain extent, men who are well-intentioned, right, are men who are more willing to take accountability, because the users, the manipulators, the men who are looking to wreak havoc in your life for their own selfish reasons, well, they're not trying to be accountable. They're going to be the ones who turn the tables on you. When you bring up something about them, they're going to flip it back on you. Who's going to dodge conversations, who's going to make nothing but excuses, but never correction, and this is the sign of a man who you don't need to be dealing with. And unfortunately, I see a lot of women who come across this behavior, and because you think this is typical male behavior, you, in essence, dismiss it rather than address it to the point where if it can't be corrected, walk away. You essentially accept it, and by accepting it, and when I say accept it, you remain dealing with this man, you've essentially enabled his unwillingness to take accountability. And this is why I push so hard to let you know that no, better does exist. Men who hold themselves accountable do exist, because if you don't think those guys exist, you'll keep accepting the ones who don't. But by knowing that there is a better level to experience with a man, then it will empower you to say, this is unacceptable. I don't need to continue to deal with this. When you are willing to step up and be the man you need to be, maybe we can talk about this. Until then, there's nothing to talk about. Nothing to talk about. So pay attention to the accountability. But I also want to stress this before we move on to another point. It's not just, is he accountable with you? Though, of course, that is extremely important. But is he accountable in life in general? All right? Because men who tend to not be accountable in other aspects of their life, well, that's going to pour over into the relationship. On the flip side, men who hold themselves accountable in life in general will more likely hold themselves accountable in this relationship. So because sometimes you're going to be dating a guy and there may not be a situation that arises that allows you to see if he's that taking accountability type of guy or not, right? As far as you two are involved. But there will probably be something else in his life that happens that you guys will be talking about where you'll get to see how he handles that. Pay attention to those moments, because that's going to give you a preview of what you'll have to deal with when it's an issue that arises between the two of you. All right. So now the next thing on the list of qualities if a man has, don't let him go, is he is a respectful man. So I feel the need to say this. It's already kind of hitting I don't know if it's hitting my spirit or it's just my brain right now. So when I say he's going to be respectful, let me just foundationally, yes, that's just an accurate thing. A good man is a respectful man, plain and simple. I do think that we live in a world where sometimes respect is misunderstood or misconstrued. All right. Meaning what some people may deem as disrespectful, right? It wasn't done with disrespect. It wasn't done with that intention from that person, from that man. And again, this is what brings me back to continuously reminding you guys of this is why we address red flags rather than just run when we see them, because so many things are misunderstandings. I'm trying to think of a good example right now. I can't think of one, but let's just say, for example, he calls you and doesn't use your name, your first name, right? He just says, hey, blah, 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 doesn't use your name. This may not be the best example, but some people may view him not using the name as, where's the respect? You should call me by my name, right? And he meant nothing bad by it. And so this doesn't make him not a good man. This doesn't make him not a man who is serious about you. It may be that where he's from, we don't use first names like that, okay? So it's little things like that sometimes we have to understand that things that are viewed as respectful behaviors sometimes are based out of how we were raised, what we are conditioned to, all right? And what we were taught was acceptable, but we don't know what you were taught was acceptable. And sometimes those two worlds collide, okay? And when someone initially does something that we perceive or receive as disrespectful, I think it's important to make sure that we check ourselves first in the sense of not internalizing it, not just reacting to it, not just jumping to this is disrespect. Now, I do think we can make an argument for certain things as blatant disrespect, but we don't have time today to go through those things at the moment. I think just a good rule of thumb is talk about it first. Don't assume the negative. Don't jump to negative, because I've seen this happen so many times. All right. So discuss it. But ultimately, yes, that good man will be a respectful man. And here's the thing. That is the sign of real respect, is when you explain to me that this is a problem for you. And because I am serious about you and I care about you, I now embrace the need to make that correction, all right? When I dismiss you and I show an unwillingness to correct the behavior that has a negative impact on you, that to me is more of a disrespect than anything, not the initial action, because he just may not have known better, all right? So be mindful of that, but always talk about it first. Next on the list of traits of he's a good man is he is commitment minded. Okay. Now, let me be clear. There's a lot of good men that you will meet that will not want a commitment with you. Their lack of desire for commitment with you, and that's not to shame you, make you feel bad or anything like that. Because listen, there's going to be a lot of good men that meet you and you're a good woman, but you may not want a commitment with them. You may not want them in that way. That does not make them a bad man. Now, I understand some of y'all may feel like, well, if he tries to engage with me and date me casually when he doesn't want something serious, that does make him bad. No, I don't agree. I'm not saying that everybody needs to be out there trying to just do casual stuff. What I'm saying is this. What makes him bad is if he is deceptive about it. What makes him bad if he is leading you on. What makes him bad is if he mistreats you, disrespects you, so on and so forth. But if he is being honest and transparent, even in moments of not desiring commitment, that I can't then say he's a bad man, because he is giving you an opportunity to make a choice. And this is where you have to be honest with yourself about what's going on here. Now, I can already hear some of you saying, but Stephan, some of these men be saying one thing and acting different, okay? Like I mentioned in one of the chapters in my book, He's Lying, Sis, is he acts like your boyfriend, but he doesn't want a girlfriend. I get it. But again, it's hard for me to call an honest man a bad man, okay? Because he's being honest and transparent. I know it can be confusing if he acts different, but again, the how he behaves with you, here's what's crazy about this thing. I know a lot of men who may want to date a woman casually, right? And will still be respectful to her, nice to her, may even provide for her, do all these things. And to the woman, it's, you're throwing me mixed signals, you're a bad person. To the guy, it's, I'm trying to make sure I give you nothing but good, positive, pleasant experiences. I'm just trying to make sure I'm a stand-up guy. I'm not doing this to confuse you. I'm doing this just to provide a positive environment. Okay? Now, to some of y'all, that sounds like nonsense. but that's a genuine thing. Like, I've heard a lot of guys say, man, it works against them to be a good guy when they're trying to be casual, because their goodness is then misconstrued as him throwing mixed signals and him wanting more than what he's saying he wants. Whereas the guy who treats the woman bad and is being casual is like, oh, okay, well, I knew he was this guy, so I don't hold this against him. And it's like, well, dang. So what do you want? The mistreatment and casual, or someone's going to treat you well even when they're being casual? Now, again, if you don't want casual, don't do casual at all. This is not me saying to do casual. This is just me breaking down this dynamic and helping you understand that the lack of willingness to commit is not what makes somebody bad. All right? Because I think I've seen too many times where these scenarios happen, and when things don't work out, the woman leaves with this very bad taste in her mouth of, these men are no good. And it's like, no, don't do that, because you're creating this negative perception of men based off a situation that doesn't deserve that label. If he was real with you, respect that he was real with you. You know what I'm saying? He didn't lead you on. You have to make a choice. And when a man says, I don't want a relationship, do not try to convince yourself otherwise. If there's one thing that men are pretty honest about when they're saying it, that you don't need to look any deeper into, is, I don't want anything serious. I don't want a relationship. I'm not saying it's never been a misrepresented statement for somebody, but I'll say probably, if I had to guess, 99.9% of the time, if a man says that, he is dead on serious, regardless of anything else he does for you. Because a man who wants to be with you is not going to tell you, I don't want a relationship, I don't want anything serious, and risk losing you. That's not what he's going to do. So if he says that, that's what he means. Okay? But getting back to the original point, a willingness to commit is more so like, I don't want to make that about good or bad. I want to make that about, this is the type of man. If you want a committed relationship, that's the kind of man you should be entertaining. And you have to be mindful when you're entertaining men who are not commitment minded. I've seen very many situations where not only does the man say he doesn't want a relationship, I've seen women date men who are saying, I don't believe in marriage, or I don't want marriage, while still hoping that maybe he'll eventually change his mind. And it's like, don't do that to yourself. Stop that. If that's not what you want, don't entertain that. Let that go, because there are plenty of men out there who from the very jump are going to tell you, no, that is what I'm working towards. That's what I want. Be available for those guys rather than get tied up in a guy who's not on the same page as you. All right. So this next one might trigger some people. I always got something on here that y'all may not like or might trigger or whatever, but you know it's all with love. And you'll understand why I said that. So the next thing on the list of great qualities that he's a good man and you should never let him go is he's a faithful man. Now, I already know some of y'all like, ain't no faithful man out there. None of these men know how to be loyal. None of these men know how to be serious. And listen, there are tons of loyal and faithful men that exist. And I have to say this next thing, even though I know this won't sit well with y'all, but not every person who ended up cheating on their partner came into it being a cheater. There's this I wish I remembered who it was, but there was a person, a very popular therapist. I believe they had a book. I just don't want to misquote who the person was, but they had said they deal with infidelity. They specialize in infidelity. It might be Esther Perel, but I'm not 100% certain. But the person had said, like, essentially, in the vast majority of cases of infidelity that occurred, it happened with people who once said, I would never cheat on my partner. And not saying it in a, I'm just saying that to sound good, but I have every intention on doing it. No, people who genuinely felt like that's a line I would never cross. I believe in faithfulness. I believe in loyalty. Boom, boom. But unfortunately, somewhere along the line, bad decisions were made, fell to temptation. It's a whole deeper explanation to it that I think we dismiss way too often. Now, that's going to be for a different video. That's actually, I'm going to give you a teaser. That's going to be for a different book as well. I got plans for that topic because I feel like infidelity is such a impactful thing that happens in so many people's lives, and we need a better understanding of it on a deeper level. I think just the whole, they're a cheater, they're going to always be a cheater. It's not that simple with a lot of these situations. All that to say, just because we see situations where men have fallen off the path, that doesn't mean men can't be faithful, all right? Because there's, as much as y'all hear about the stories of the men who can't, but I got tons of stories of men who were. I got tons of stories of the man who was faithful and the woman cheated on him, okay? But y'all don't typically hear those. You hear the other side, and it creates this very skewed perception of what exists out there. I got guys who come to mind right now who I like, again, no one can ever say they know 100% someone will never or has never cheated. But I feel very confident in saying these people have not. And I just know in general, if it's not something that everyone engages in. Anyways, to get to the main point here is that, yes, there are a man who believes in being faithful. And notice I said believes in being faithful, because here's another point I want to make. If you, and there's going to be some men who don't like this, but hey, it is what it is. If you meet a man and that man says something like, every man cheats, it's a wrap. Like, don't even try to attempt to think that you can completely trust this dude's going to be faithful. He is basically telegraphing to you, hey, don't expect this out of me as far as complete 100% faithfulness. Because if I have if I'm going to say all men cheat, am I not part of all men? I am telling you, hey, I'm basically lowering the expectations by saying, hey, this happens everywhere. So when it happens here, don't stress me out, because it is what it is. All right, let's work through it. That's basically what's being said. So he has to even first believe in faithfulness. Some men don't believe in faithfulness. That's just a reality to it. Some men don't. There are others who do. And if you want that in your relationship, and I say that because we live in a time where, hey, there are some women who, behind closed doors, are willing to accept it under certain parameters. That is their choice. They're a grown woman. They can do what they feel okay with. But you as a woman, if you know that is important to you, then yes, have discussions with these men to see what is their mindset when it comes to this thing. Does that guarantee it will never happen as far as cheating and infidelity? No, it doesn't. Because as I told you earlier, a lot of times it happens to the person who said, I would never do it. But at least we have the foundation to work from. All right. Whereas if they don't even have that mindset, it's a wrap. So the good man, the man you should be entertaining, if this is what you desire, is a man who believes in faithfulness. And I will say this, again, as I mentioned in the earlier point, pay attention to what kind of character this man displays in other aspects of his life. Is this a man who is loyal in general? Is this a man who walks with a certain level of integrity in general? Because if he doesn't, there's a greater chance, not a guarantee, but a greater chance that that lack of integrity or loyalty will creep into your relationship. But when he shows he is a man of that kind of character in his general life, we at least have a stronger foundation, because nothing's guaranteed, but a stronger foundation that he can uphold that lifestyle once in a relationship with you. All right, so now we're moving on to the next thing. And The next trait of a good man, a man you should not let go, is a willing communicator. Okay? Now, I want to start off by saying this. Willing is such a key word here because there's going to be a lot of men who may not be one to initiate a lot of conversations, may not be one to start down the path of having that deep discussion or even bring up issues to a certain extent. Not saying that's healthy, but to me, what's more important is that he is willing to communicate when you desire to have those discussions. He is willing to engage when you want to sit down and bond with each other about things. He just needs to be willing, all right? And not just a willing communicator as far as talking to you, but listening to you. Bottom line, this is what every relationship needs, all right? Now, this kind of goes back to the piece about emotional availability. In a lot of relationships or dating situations, the willingness to communicate will be somewhat contingent on how much desire he has in this woman. So again, if he's just trying to be casual, he will more likely try to limit conversation. Now, there are some men who want to be casual and talk your ear off, okay? So it's not an automatic thing, but I will say that if he's unwilling, then chances are he's either not willing to be serious or he's still at a very unhealthy place, okay? So you've got to be able to establish with him early that we have to have healthy communication about things. And again, so as I was saying, it is partly contingent on how serious he is about you. It is also partially contingent on your ability as well to have healthy communication. A lot of women are not mindful of how they come off when trying to communicate with their partner. A lot of women are not mindful of the unhealthy environment they either create or contribute to when trying to communicate with their partner. And unfortunately, there's a lot of men who will shut down before leaving the relationship. Okay? So even though he doesn't like talking to you, even though he doesn't feel safe opening up to you, he may not automatically leave you. That doesn't mean he doesn't have a problem with your communication style or the way you go about things. It's just that it kind of goes back to where I said a lot of women, when they perceive the average man as, I forgot what it was, but not doing certain things, they become more accepting of it when a man's not doing it, which is not the right way to go about it. A lot of men just view if a woman, let's say, is a nagger. And again, I don't mean that, because I know some of y'all are saying, well, I wouldn't have to nag if he did what I told him to do the first time. But I'm not talking about like he's not listening nag. I'm talking about like being negative and overbearing and all that kind of stuff. But for a lot of men, they've experienced that over and over again in their different experiences with women. So they kind of write it off as a woman being a woman. And rather than viewing it as, no, this is a clear sign that this is not good here and maybe we need to end things, they just allow it to continue. And so if you're noticing that he's shutting down, if you're noticing that he's unwilling to communicate, step one is to always ask yourself, am I communicating in a healthy way? Am I making sure that I'm doing my part to establish the environment necessary for proper communication? Now, when you can say, I'm doing this, and he's still unwilling, that's it. That's it. Again, either he's not serious, he's not healthy enough, whatever it is, you cannot ignore it. Because if you ignore ignore the issue of a man who is unwilling to communicate with you, you are setting yourself up for a very unhappy, unsuccessful, miserable relationship. Many women have done it. I don't want that to happen to you. So be mindful of that. But when he's a willing communicator, that's a great thing. All right. And now last but not least of qualities of a good man. And some may disagree with this one. And that is he can be humble. Okay. Now I think humble is tricky because Because a lot of people, I have a friend who gets on me because I consider myself a very humble person and I strive to be humble. But my humbleness comes from understanding I'm nothing without God. And I don't put myself on a certain pedestal because God gets the glory in my life. It's like, I'm not even gonna get too deep into it, but that's where I get my humbleness from. So my humble doesn't mean I am not confident, right? But I feel the need to say it, but I know my place. And again, it's an understanding that God is the author of all this. So, you know what I'm saying? I give him the credit. But for a lot of people, they view humbleness as dimming your own light. They view humbleness as selling yourself short. They view humbleness as not embracing your self-worth. And that's why it's tricky, because I don't want even a man listening to this to think that's what I'm saying when I say humble. I more so mean, and maybe the better way to say it was not arrogant, not cocky in this negative, unhealthy way. All right. And preferably, you know, because I am a believer, I would want the man to be humble in the sense of having God in his life. Because I do think that a man who has God in his life carries at least some level of humility in him. And it's that humbleness that allows a man to receive correction. It's that humbleness that allows a man to be more understanding and open and patient with somebody. It's that humbleness that allows a man to not allow his pride to get the best of him in many situations that can then wreak havoc in a relationship. But I do feel the need to say that again, there are a lot of good men out there who have not learned how to be properly humble from my perspective, okay? And so I think, again, this is one of those things where I don't want to automatically write a man off as not good if he's not humble in this way. But I do think it's something that should be discussed. I do think it's something that is good. And let me make clear, I think it's good for all of us, men and women, to carry a level of humility in that way. Now, again, this is one of those times maybe I'm wrong. This is my perception, and pray about it and let it sit with you. But I welcome any counter arguments. You know, you can leave them in the comments. But I do think humbleness is important for us to have good, strong, healthy relationships. And ultimately, I would want to see two people who can humble themselves before God, that allows themselves to come together and put God first and allow God to lead them to a healthy and happy relationship. Thank you for watching this video. I hope and pray it was helpful to you. Be sure to watch this one over here on how to be a man's peace. You need to go watch it. You are married to a man, that you ask yourself, am I welcoming him with love? Am I greeting him with positive, loving, desirable energy? And when I say desirable, not just in him desiring you or what would make him desire you, but showing him that you desire him.